The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with the voices of 100 different species. Ambassador Jinho Kim sat quietly in the human section, watching the chaos unfold before him. His dark eyes moved from one alien delegate to another as they argued about trade routes and territory disputes. Next to him, Yuna Park checked her military tablet for the third time in 5 minutes. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but Jinho could see the tension in her shoulders. On his other side, Minho Lee shuffled through his trade documents, frowning at the numbers on each page. "They're not even listening," Yuna whispered to Jinho. "Look at them," Jinho nodded but said nothing. The Valkyrie delegation was the loudest, their tall blue forms gesturing wildly as they spoke. Their leader, Councillor Threshmer, stood at the center podium with his 4 arms spread wide. "The human colonies take too much space." Threshmer's voice boomed across the hall. "They build their settlements everywhere. They use resources that belong to older, wiser species." A wave of agreement swept through many delegates. The insect-like hive speakers clicked their approval. The crystal beings of the Shard Collective glowed brighter. Even some of the smaller species nodded their strange heads. Jinho had heard this speech before. Many times. It never got easier to listen to. Furthermore, Threshmer continued, humans demand too much say in council matters. They are young. They are new to space. Why should they have equal voice with species who traveled the stars for thousands of years? More sounds of agreement filled the hall. Jinho felt Yuna's hand clench into a fist beside him. Minho's papers crackled as he gripped them tighter. "Honorable Counselor," Jinho stood up slowly. His voice was calm and clear. "May I remind the Council of recent events?" Threshmer's 6 eyes all turned to look at him. "You may speak, human, briefly." 3 years ago, the Keth Wars threatened to destroy 12 star systems. Human mediators helped end that conflict in 6 months instead of 6 years. 2 years ago, when the plague ships attacked the Outer Rim, human doctors worked day and night to save millions of lives. Last year, when trade between the Hive and the crystals broke down, human engineers built bridges between your technologies. Jinho paused and looked around the hall. Some delegates looked uncomfortable. Others seemed bored. "Humans have served the Council faithfully for 27 years, he continued. "We have asked for nothing but fair treatment and the chance to help build a better galaxy." Threshmer laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Help, you call it? Help when you interfere in matters beyond your understanding? You humans think you can solve every problem with your primitive methods." "Primitive?" Yuna started to stand, but Jinho put a gentle hand on her arm. "Yes, primitive," Threshmer repeated. "Your people have been in space for less than 50 years. We Valkyrie have ruled star systems since before your species learned to make fire. The Hive built their first colonies when your world was nothing but ice and rock." The hall erupted in cheers from many species. Jinho remained standing, his face showing no emotion. "Very well," he said quietly. "Then let the Council vote on our future role." The vote was swift and brutal. Reduce human representation by half. Cut human colony funding by 60%. Remove humans from all military command positions. Force human ships to pay new taxes for using Council space lanes. The numbers appeared on the great screen. 847 votes in favor. 23 against, 12 abstentions. Jinho stared at the numbers for a long moment. 27 years of service. 27 years of sacrifice. This was their reward. "Ambassador Kim requests a brief recess," he announced. "Granted," Threshmer said with obvious satisfaction. 15 minutes. Jinho, Yuna, and Minho walked to the human delegation's private room in silence. As soon as the door closed, Yuna exploded. 15% representation, she shouted. "After everything we've done. After all the lives we've saved." "The trade restrictions will bankrupt half our colonies," Minho added, his voice shaking with anger. "They know that. They want us to fail." Jinho sat down heavily in his chair. He pulled out a small communication device and entered a long code. The device beeped once, then began to glow with a soft blue light. "Sir?" Yuna asked. What are you doing? Activating Protocol 7, Jinho said simply. Both Yuna and Minho went very still. Protocol 7 was something they had hoped never to use. It was the final option, created years ago by the human government in case the worst happened. The device chimed softly. A voice spoke from it in clear English. Protocol 7 confirmed. All units standing by, awaiting final authorization. Jinho looked at his two companions. Any objections? Yuna was quiet for a moment, then she shook her head. No, sir. They made their choice. Minho, the trade representative, sighed deeply. My colonies will die under these new rules anyway. At least this way, we keep our dignity. Jinho nodded and spoke into the device. Authorization code Alpha 77. Execute Protocol 7 immediately. Confirmed. Protocol 7 is now active. Good luck, Ambassador. They returned to the Great Hall 3 minutes before the recess ended. Threshmer was already back at his podium, clearly eager to continue the humiliation. Ah, the humans return, he said with a nasty smile. Are you ready to accept the Council's wisdom? Jinho walked to the human delegation's speaking platform. The hall fell quiet, expecting to hear humanity's surrender. Honorable Council members, Jinho began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. For 27 years, humanity has served this council with loyalty and dedication. We have bled for your causes. We have died for your peace. We have shared our knowledge and our strength freely. He paused and looked directly at Threshmer. Today, this council has shown us what that service is worth. Today, you have made your feelings about humanity very clear. Jinho's voice never rose, never showed anger or pain. It remained perfectly calm and professional. Therefore, effective immediately, the Terran Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will honor no council laws, pay no council taxes, and recognize no council authority over human space. The hall exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted questions and demands. Threshmer's 6 eyes went wide with shock. You cannot simply leave. The Valkyrie counselor screamed over the noise. There are procedures. There are contracts. The contracts you just voted to break? Jinho asked mildly. I think not. Across the galaxy, every human ship, station, and outpost received the same message at that exact moment. Within minutes, human personnel began leaving alien facilities. Human ships undocked from space stations. Human colonists started loading their belongings onto transport vessels. There were no arguments, no desperate negotiations, no angry threats or emotional speeches. Humans simply gathered their things and left. This is madness, Threshmer shouted as reports flooded in from across council space. You cannot evacuate an entire species, but they could, and they were. Within hours, human settlements that had stood for decades were empty. Research stations that had operated for years went dark. Trade posts that handled billions of credits in commerce simply closed their doors. By the end of the first day, 90% of humanity had vanished from council space. By the end of the second day, it was 98%. By the end of the third day, there was not a single human left in any council territory. They left behind empty buildings, silent machines, and one final message that played on repeat from every abandoned human facility. The Terran Federation thanks the Galactic Council for 27 years of cooperation. We wish you well in your future endeavors. The Council had gotten exactly what they voted for. Complete freedom from human interference. They were about to learn what that really meant. 3 weeks had passed since the humans disappeared. Counselor Threshmer stood in his private office on Nexus Prime, looking out at the busy space lanes around the station. Everything seemed normal. Ships came and went. Trade continued. The galaxy moved on without the humans. See, he said to his aide, a nervous young Valkyrie named Kethva, nothing has changed. We don't need them. But even as he spoke, a red warning light began flashing on his communication panel. Sir, Kethva said, checking his tablet. We're getting reports from the Outer Rim. Communication delays are increasing. Threshmer waved a dismissive hand. Equipment breaks. It gets fixed. This happens all the time. What he didn't know was that, across the galaxy, things were starting to go wrong in small ways. Ways that seemed unimportant at first. On Kepler Station, Chief Engineer Brickstall stared at a bank of red warning lights. The atmospheric processors were acting strange. They kept changing settings on their own, as if someone was giving them new instructions. "When did this start?" he asked his assistant. 3 days ago, sir. Right after the morning shift change. Brickstall scratched his scaled head. He was good with machines, but these processors used human-designed control systems. Dr. Seijin Cho had installed them personally 2 years ago. The human doctor had tried to explain how they worked, but the technology was beyond what most species understood. "Have you tried contacting Dr. Cho?" Brickstall asked. His assistant looked uncomfortable. "Sir, Dr. Cho left with the other humans. His research files are locked with encryption codes we can't break." The engineer felt a cold chill in his stomach. Without those codes, they couldn't access the maintenance protocols. Without the protocols, they couldn't fix the processors if they failed completely. "How long can the backups run?" he asked quietly. "Maybe 2 weeks, sir, maybe less." Meanwhile, in the Vega system, Captain Zorth of the merchant vessel Lucky Strike was having the worst week of his life. His ship carried precious metals from the mining worlds to the core systems. It was a route he had flown safely for 15 years, but not anymore. "Pirates off the starboard bow." His scanner operator shouted. 3 ships closing fast." Zorth cursed it in his native language. This was the second attack this week. Before the humans left, their patrol ships had kept the trade routes safe. Human captains like Mary Soong had worked with local security forces to coordinate protection. Their fast ships and clever tactics had made piracy too dangerous and unprofitable. Now the pirates were back, bolder than ever. "Send a distress call to Council Security," Zorth ordered. "Already did, sir. They say their nearest ship is 6 hours away." 6 hours. The pirates would be long gone with his cargo by then. Zorth watched helplessly as the raider ships surrounded his vessel. "This is Pirate Lord Vexra," a harsh voice crackled over the radio. "Surrender your cargo or be destroyed." Zorth had no choice. He powered down his weapons and prepared to be boarded. Back on Nexus Prime, the reports were starting to pile up on Counselor Yava's desk. The Altair Collective representative was known for her careful attention to details. Unlike Threshmar, she actually read every report that crossed her desk. Communication failures in 12 systems. Atmospheric problems on 6 stations. 17 pirate attacks in the last week. Medical emergencies that couldn't be treated because key research was locked in human databases. She pulled up the files on her computer and started connecting the dots. The communication network used quantum relays designed by human engineers. The atmospheric systems relied on human-written software. The anti-piracy patrols had been coordinated by human tactical officers. "Oh no," she whispered to herself. "What have we done?" Her assistant, a young Altair named Sila, poked her head into the office. "Counselor, you asked me to track down information." "About the Guardian Gates?" "Yes, what did you find?" Sila looked worried. "Ma'am, the maintenance schedules were all managed by human engineering teams. The next scheduled inspection was supposed to be next month." Yava's blood turned to ice. The Guardian Gates were massive structures that protected inhabited systems from cosmic storms and radiation. They were ancient technology, built by a long-dead species. Only humans had figured out how to maintain them properly. "Get me a meeting with the other counselors," Yava said urgently. "Now." But when she tried to organize the meeting, she discovered another problem. The council's scheduling system was down. The backup system was also down. Both had been maintained by human technicians who were no longer there to fix them. She ended up walking from office to office, personally inviting council members to an emergency session. Most of them didn't come. "This is ridiculous, Counselor," Threshmar said when only 8 species showed up out of the usual 50. "A few minor technical problems don't require an emergency meeting." "Minor?" Yava stood up, her usually calm voice rising. "Threshmar, we're looking at communication breakdowns. Security failures and life support problems across dozens of systems. Coincidence, the Velkari leader replied firmly. Equipment fails sometimes. We'll fix it. With what knowledge? Yava demanded. The humans took their research with them. Their files are encrypted. Their technical manuals are written in languages our computers can't translate properly. Grixonar of the Hive Collective clicked his mandibles nervously. My workers report strange malfunctions in our mining equipment. The machines use human-designed. Safety protocols? My trade ships can't navigate the spiral arm routes, added Secton from the Merchant Guild. The navigation beacons were all calibrated by human teams. Threshmer slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. Enough! We managed perfectly well before the humans arrived. We'll manage perfectly well now, will we? Yava asked quietly. Threshmer. Before humans joined the council, how long did wars last? That's not relevant. Answer the question. How long? The Velkari counselor shifted uncomfortably. Wars lasted until one side was completely destroyed, sometimes decades. And after? Humans became our mediators? 6 months to 2 years? But that doesn't mean... How many major plagues swept through the galaxy before human doctors started working on cross-species medicine? Threshmer's 6 eyes glared at her. You're making connections that don't exist. Yava pulled up a holographic display showing trade routes. Look at this. Before humans, trade between species was limited to direct neighbors. Different technologies, different languages, different customs. Humans became the translators, the adapters, the bridge builders. The display showed the complex web of connections that humans had built between species who couldn't work together. Directly, they didn't just participate in our civilization, Yava continued, her voice growing more urgent. They became the glue that held it together. Nonsense, Threshmer growled, but his voice lacked its usual confidence, as if summoned. By their conversation, another aide rushed into the room. Counselors, the young Kristen said, his form flickering with distress colors. We just received word from the frontier zone. The Keth and the Vorthen have declared war on each other. The room fell silent. The Keth and Vorthen had been bitter. Enemies for centuries before humans helped them sign a peace treaty 10 years ago. Human diplomats have been managing their disputes ever since, the aide continued. With the humans gone... He didn't need to finish. Everyone in the room understood. How long before their fleets engage? Yava asked. Intelligence says 48 hours, ma'am. Threshmer stood up slowly. For the first time since the humans left, he looked uncertain. Send a message to both fleets, he ordered. Tell them the council commands them to stand down. Sir, the aide said quietly, they've already replied. They say the council has no authority over them without human mediators to enforce the peace. Treaties. The silence in the room stretched on for long minutes. Outside the windows, the space lanes around Nexus Prime looked busy and normal. But everyone in that room was beginning to understand that appearances could be deceiving. The cracks were starting to show. And they were spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Counselor Yava, Threshmer said finally, his voice much quieter than usual. Perhaps you should prepare a detailed report on these technical difficulties. Yava nodded grimly. She was already planning much more than a report. She was planning to find the humans and beg them to come back, before it was too late. 2 months after the humans disappeared, Counselor Yava stood in the ruins of what used to be the council's busiest trade hub. Broken glass covered the floor of the Meridian Station Control Center. Smoke still rose from damaged computer terminals. How? Many dead? She asked the station commander. 43, Commander Blix replied, his voice hollow. The pirates came in fast. Our security couldn't stop them. Yava closed her eyes. Before the humans left, Meridian Station had never been attacked. Human patrol ships and their clever defense plans had made it impossible. Now it was the 3rd major station to fall to raiders this month. Where's our fleet? She asked. Blix looked embarrassed. Scattered across 12 systems, trying to protect convoy routes. Without human tactical coordination, we can't be everywhere. At once, back on Nexus Prime, the emergency council session was chaos. Representatives from 40 species all talked at once. Fear filled the great hall like a thick fog. "The Kethvorthan War has spread to 6 systems," shouted the Christan delegate. "Both sides are using forbidden weapons. My trade routes are blocked by pirate fleets," cried the Merchant Guild representative. "My people are starving." "The plague on Outer Rim worlds is spreading," added the medical officer from the Healer's Circle. "We need Dr. Taeyun Choi's research files, but they're encrypted beyond our ability to break?" Threshmer sat at the head council position, but he looked much smaller than before. His blue skin had turned pale. 2 of his forearms shook slightly as he tried to maintain control. "Order," he demanded. "We will solve these problems one at a time." "How?" Counselor Yava stood up from her seat. "Tell me how, Threshmer. Our communication network is failing faster every day. Half our colonies can't talk to each other. Ships are getting lost because they can't receive navigation updates." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked failed systems. Yellow dots showed systems in crisis. Green dots showed systems still functioning normally. There were far more red and yellow dots than green ones. "Look at this," Yava continued. "Every green system has one thing in common. They all had human engineers who left behind detailed maintenance instructions before they departed." "Coincidence," Threshmer said weakly. "Is it also coincidence that the hegemony war started last week?" Yava demanded. "The eastern and western hegemonies have been building up their fleets for years. Human diplomats were the only ones keeping them talking instead of fighting." She changed the display to show military movements. 2 massive fleets were moving toward each other in the Sagittarius Arm. Each fleet contained thousands of ships. "When they clash, millions will die," Yava said quietly. "Human negotiators ended wars before they started. Now we'll have to watch civilizations burn." Grixonar of the Hive Collective clicked his mandibles nervously. "My mining worlds report equipment. Failures daily." The safety systems were installed by human engineers. "Without proper maintenance protocols, 3 mines have already collapsed." "My colonies can't process their food crops," added Sektong from the agricultural worlds. "The processing plants use human-designed systems. We're facing famine in the outer spiral." Threshmer stood up slowly. "We are the Galactic Council. We ruled this galaxy for thousands of years before humans arrived. We can solve these problems without them. Can we?" Yava asked coldly. "Then explain this." The holographic display changed again. This time it showed the Guardian Gates, massive structures that protected inhabited worlds from cosmic storms and deadly radiation. The ancient machines formed a protective grid around the entire galaxy's populated region. 37 Guardian Gates have failed in the last month, Yava announced. Without them, cosmic storms will sterilize entire star systems. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew about the Guardian Gates. They were older than any current civilization. No one understood how they worked, except humans. Human engineers had somehow figured out the ancient technology and kept the gates running for 27 years. "We have the human technical manuals," Threshmer said desperately. "Written in their languages, using their mathematics, referencing their scientific principles," Yava replied. "Our best scientists can't understand half of what they wrote." The humans didn't just maintain the gates. They became the only ones who could maintain them. A new voice spoke from the back of the hall. It was Drektor, the representative from the Outer Rim colonies. "It's worse than that," he said, walking toward the center of the hall. "The plague spreading through my worlds isn't natural. Our medical scans show it's an engineered virus designed to kill multiple species at once." Fear rippled through the assembled delegates. Dr. Taeyun Choi was working on treatments for exactly this kind of cross-species disease, Drektor continued. His research could save millions of lives, but his files are locked behind encryption we can't break. "Where did this plague come from?" Yava asked. "Unknown," Drektor replied. "But it appeared 2 weeks after human medical stations went offline. Almost like someone was waiting for our defenses to weaken. Threshmar's 6 eyes went wide. Are you suggesting the humans created this plague? No, Director said firmly. I'm suggesting someone else did. Someone who knew humans were our main defense against biological weapons. The implication hung in the air like poison. If enemies were watching the galaxy, waiting for signs of weakness, then humanity's departure had sent a clear signal. We need economic solutions too, added the Trade Federation representative. The galactic credit system is failing. Human banks provided the complex currency exchanges that let our different species trade with each other. Yava pulled up another display showing economic data. The lines on the charts all pointed downward. Trade volume has dropped 60%, she announced. When species can't easily exchange goods and services, entire economies collapse. My people are abandoning their colonies, said the representative from the pioneer worlds. Without human supply lines and logistics support, distant settlements can't survive. The refugee problem is getting worse, added another delegate. Millions of people are fleeing failed systems. Without human refugee coordination programs, we don't know where to put them all. Threshmar looked around the hall at the faces of his fellow counselors. For the first time, he seemed to really see their fear and desperation. What are you asking me to do? He said quietly. Find them, Yava said simply. Find the humans and ask them to come back. They won't listen to me, Threshmar admitted. Not after what happened. Then send someone they might listen to, Yava replied. Send someone who voted against the restrictions? Send someone who tried to stop this disaster. All eyes turned to Yava herself. She had been one of the few council members who opposed reducing human representation. She had warned that humans were more important than anyone realized. I'll go, she said. I'll find them and beg them to save us. What if they refuse? Asked Rixanar. Yava looked at the displays showing the failing galaxy around them. Red lights blinked everywhere, marking dying systems and abandoned worlds. Then we'll face the consequences of our choices, she said grimly, and hope we can learn to survive in the galaxy we created. Outside the council chamber, space traffic around Nexus Prime was lighter than it had been in decades. Ships traveled in armed convoys now, afraid of pirates. Communication delays meant messages took days. Instead of hours to cross the galaxy. The great civilization that had stood for millennia was crumbling. And it had taken only 2 months without humans to show how fragile it really was. The dominoes were falling faster now. Soon, nothing would be left standing. Counselor Yava stood on the bridge of her ship, the Peaceful Star, as it dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. She had expected to see the busy traffic of humanity's homeworld. Instead, she saw nothing. Captain Moltar, she said to her Altair. Ship Commander, are your sensors working correctly? Yes, Counselor, the captain replied, checking his instruments twice. There are no ships around Earth? No orbital stations? No communication signals. Yava stared at the blue and green planet through the view screen. Earth looked beautiful and alive, but completely silent. Take us into orbit, she ordered. Run deep scans. As they got closer, the truth became clear. Earth cities were intact but empty. Vehicles sat parked in streets with no drivers. Buildings stood complete but dark. It was like the entire human population had simply vanished. Landing bay on continent North America is clear, reported the sensor officer. No life signs detected. Take us down, Yava said quietly. The Peaceful Star landed at what used to be the New York spaceport. Yava and her team walked through empty terminals and silent corridors. Their footsteps echoed loudly in the abandoned halls. Look at this, called Dr. Sekthin, the expedition's scientist. He was standing near a large display screen that showed departure schedules. The last ships left exactly 73 days ago, the same day the humans announced their withdrawal from the Council. They planned this, Yava whispered. This wasn't a quick decision. They planned to leave everything behind. Captain Moltar found a working computer terminal and managed to access some basic information. Counselor, he said, according to these records, the human population of Earth was evacuated in stages over 3 months. They took only essential items and personal belongings. What about their colonies? Yava asked. All evacuated too. 73 human worlds, empty in the same 3-day period. Yava walked to a large window overlooking the empty city. Cars sat in traffic patterns as if their drivers had simply stopped and walked away. Plants were already starting to grow through cracks in the sidewalks. They left it all behind, she said in amazement. Their homes, their cities, their entire civilization, just to get away from us. Dr. Sekthin approached with a tablet in his hands. Counselor, I found something. Interesting. There's a message broadcasting on all human communication frequencies. Play it, Yava ordered. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It was Ambassador Jinho Kim, looking older and more tired than when Yava had last seen him. Two? Anyone who finds this message, Jinho's recorded voice said. The Terran Federation has found a new path among the stars. We have taken our people beyond the edge of known space, to a place where we can build something better. The image paused, and Jinho's eyes seemed to look directly at Yava. Do not follow us, he continued. We have closed the door behind us. The galaxy you wanted is yours now. We hope you find peace in it. The message ended, leaving the team standing in the empty spaceport, beyond the edge of known space. Captain Moltar asked, What does that mean? It means they found a way to leave the galaxy entirely, Dr. Sekthin said, studying his instruments. But that should be impossible. No species has ever developed technology that advanced. Yava activated her communication device. This is Counselor. Yava to Nexus Prime. We need to speak with the Council immediately. The response took several minutes to come through. When it did, the voice was filled with static and interference. Yava, this is ... Threshmer, the ... communication. Breaking. Up, Guardian Gate, solar system ... dialing. The transmission cut off entirely. Captain, Yava said urgently, how long to get back to Nexus Prime? At maximum speed, 18 days, Moltar replied. But Counselor, something's wrong with hyperspace in this region. The navigation beacons are offline. Then we fly carefully? Yava said grimly. The Council needs to know what we found here. The journey back was a nightmare. Without human-maintained navigation beacons, they had to plot their course manually. Twice, they almost flew into cosmic storms that should have been clearly marked on their charts when they finally reached Council space. What they found was chaos. Peaceful. Star, this is traffic control. A stressed voice crackled over their radio. State your emergency. This is Counselor Yava returning from the Earth mission. What's our status? Counselor, thank the stars you're back. The Hegemony War has started. 2 fleets clashed near Rigel 3 days ago. Estimated casualties are in the millions. Yava closed her eyes in pain. Any word from the diplomatic corps? What? Diplomatic corps? The controller asked bitterly. Our ambassadors can't even reach the war zone. Half our long-range communication network is down. As the peaceful star approached Nexus Prime, Yava could see the changes immediately. Instead of hundreds of ships in orderly traffic patterns, only a few dozen vessels moved around the station. Many of them were damaged. Refugee ships from war zones and failed colonies. The emergency council session was smaller than before. Only 26 species sent representatives. The others were too busy dealing with their own crises to attend. Report, Threshmer said when Yava entered the chamber. The Velkari counselor looked like he had aged years in just 3 weeks. Earth is empty, Yava announced. All human worlds are empty. They've left the galaxy entirely. Shocked murmurs filled the room. That's impossible, said Grixanar. No one has technology that advanced. Apparently humans did, Yava replied. They've gone beyond the galactic rim to places we can't follow. She activated a holographic display, showing Jinho's message. When it finished, the room was silent. They're not coming back, Yava said quietly. We need to accept that and figure out how to survive without them. We can't survive without them, said Drektor from the outer rim. The plague has spread to 47 worlds. Without human medical research, we have no cure. The Guardian Gate protecting my home system failed yesterday, added another counselor. Cosmic radiation is already killing crops on 3 planets. My colonies are abandoning their settlements, said the Pioneer World's representative. Without human supply lines, they can't survive in deep space. Thresher stood up slowly. For the first time since Yava had known him, the proud Valkyrie looked defeated. How many systems have we lost? He asked quietly. Completely failed? 17, Yava replied, consulting her reports. In serious crisis, over 200, still stable, maybe 30. Out of how many total? Before the humans left. Over 800 inhabited systems. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. In less than 3 months, they had lost 90% of their civilization. There has to be something we can do, Thresher said desperately. Some way to contact them, some way to convince them to help. They told us not to follow, Yava reminded him. They closed the door behind them. Then we break down the door, Thresher declared. We find them and make them listen. With what? Yava asked coldly. Our military can't even stop pirates, much less search beyond the galactic rim. Our scientists can't understand the technology. Humans left behind. Our diplomats can't end wars without human mediators. She stood up and looked around the chamber at the desperate faces of her fellow counselors. Face the truth, she said harshly. We destroyed the best thing that ever happened to our galaxy. We had partners who could unite us, protect us, and help us grow. Instead, we treated them like servants. They were too young, Thresher protested weakly. Too inexperienced, were they? Yava pulled up historical records. In 27 years with humans as council members, we had the longest period of peace in galactic history, the strongest economy, the most advanced technology, the best medical care, the most effective disaster response. She paused and looked directly at Thresher. In 3 months without them, we've lost almost everything. The council chamber fell silent except for the distant rumble of ships launching from the station. Refugee ships, mostly carrying survivors from the growing list of failed worlds. What do we do now? Asked Grixonar quietly. We try to survive. Yava said, we try to hold together what's left of our civilization. And we pray that somehow, somewhere, the humans remember us kindly enough to help if something worse than us comes looking for the galaxy. None of them knew how prophetic those words would prove to be. 6 months after the humans left, Counselor Thresher sat alone in his office, staring at reports he could barely stand to read. The lights in his office flickered constantly now. The power grid for Nexus Prime was failing like everything else. 3 founding species had withdrawn from the Council completely. The Christian Collective had sealed their borders and refused all contact. The Hive worlds had gone silent after their communication relays failed. The ancient builders had retreated to their core systems and abandoned their outer colonies. Thresher's personal aide, Kethva, entered quietly carrying a datapad. Sir, the young Valkyrie said carefully, the morning reports. How bad? Thresher asked without looking up. The hegemony war has spread to 31 systems. Both sides are using planet-killer weapons now. The death toll is estimated at over 50 million. Thresher closed his 6 eyes in pain. Continue. The plague in the Outer Rim has reached core worlds. 17 planets are under complete quarantine. Medical teams can't develop treatments without Dr. Taeyun Choi's research files. More. Pirates now control most major trade routes. The merchant guilds are demanding military protection we can't provide. Food shipments to colony worlds have stopped. Kethva paused, clearly reluctant to continue. What else? Thresher demanded. Sir, the Guardian Gate protecting Nexus Prime itself is showing critical failures. Our engineers estimate it will collapse within days. Thresher finally looked up. His blue skin had gone pale gray over the months. His forearms trembled slightly as he reached for the datapad. How many counselors attended yesterday's session? He asked. 8, sir. Out of 57 species still in the council. And before the humans left? Every session had full attendance, sir, all 89 species. Thresher stood and walked to his window. Outside, Nexus Prime looked like a dying station. Only a handful of ships moved in the space lanes. Most were damaged refugee vessels or military ships rushing to put out fires across the galaxy. I was, so sure we were right, he said quietly. Humans were young, inexperienced. How could they possibly understand galactic politics better than species who had ruled stars for millennia? Sir? Do you know what I've learned, Kethva? Threshmer turned from the window. Experience without wisdom is worthless. Age without flexibility is a curse. We were old and proud and stupid. Before Kethva could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency alert, came an automated voice. Unknown ships detected at the edge of the system. Oh. Defensive units report to stations. Threshmer and his aide rushed to the command center. A few remaining Council security officers were staring at their screens in confusion. Report, Threshmer ordered. Sir, the security chief said, we're detecting a single ship approaching. But it's using a design we don't recognize? Pirates? Smugglers? No, sir. The energy signatures are completely unknown. And sir, the ship is massive. Bigger than any vessel in our databases. Threshmer looked at the tactical display. The unknown ship was indeed enormous, easily 10 times the size of the largest Council warship. Is it armed? He asked. We can't tell, sir. Their technology is beyond our sensors' ability to analyze. Open communication channels, all frequencies. We've been trying, sir. No response. For 20 minutes, they watched the massive ship approach Nexus Prime. It moved slowly, almost carefully, as if its pilot wanted to avoid seeming threatening. Then suddenly, every screen in the command center flickered and changed. A human face appeared on all the displays simultaneously. Threshmer's 6 eyes went wide. The human looked to be in his 50s, with graying hair and kind but tired eyes. He wore a uniform that was similar to old Earth military designs, but clearly more advanced. Greetings, Nexus Prime, the human said in perfect Council standard. This is Admiral Wobin SCO of the Terran Alliance. I request permission to address the Galactic Council. The command center fell silent. No one seemed to know what to say. Admiral, Threshmer finally managed, this is Counselor Threshmer. The Council ... The Council is in emergency session. Most of our members are dealing with crises caused by our departure, Admiral Wubin finished gently. Yes, we know. That's why I'm here. You're here to help? Threshmer asked, hope creeping into his voice. I'm here to warn you, the Admiral replied, his expression becoming serious, and to offer a choice. Within an hour, the largest Council session in months was assembled. 18 species managed to send representatives. Others participated through damaged communication links when possible. Admiral Wubin's image appeared. As a hologram in the center of the Great Hall, he looked around at the faces of the assembled counselors with sad recognition. Members of the Galactic Council, he began formally, 6 months ago you made a decision about humanity's place in your civilization. We accepted that decision and departed peacefully. Admiral, Counselor Yava interrupted, we've learned that we made a terrible mistake. The galaxy is falling apart without human involvement. We need your help. Wubin nodded slowly. We know. We've been watching. Watching? Threshmer asked. Counselor Threshmer, Wubin said, looking directly at him. Did you ever wonder why humans were so good at solving galactic problems? Why we could end wars, cure diseases, and maintain ancient technologies that baffled other species? I assumed it was because you were younger, more flexible. Partially true, Wubin agreed, but there was another reason. When humans first left Earth and encountered other species, we discovered something disturbing. Evidence of an ancient threat that had destroyed civilizations before. He paused and gestured. The holographic display changed to show star charts of dead regions in space. These areas used to contain thriving civilizations, Wubin explained. Billions of beings lived in these systems. Then something came and wiped them out completely. Left nothing behind but empty worlds and broken technology. Fear rippled through the assembled counselors. What kind of threat? Yava asked quietly. We call them the Void Seekers, Wubin said grimly. They appear every few thousand years, destroy all intelligent life they find, then disappear again into the space between galaxies. The display changed again, showing ancient ruins and dead worlds. Every time we helped solve a galactic crisis, we were really preparing for their return, Wubin continued. Strong communication networks to coordinate defense. Peaceful cooperation between species to prevent internal wars. Advanced medical knowledge to counter their biological weapons. Guardian Gate maintenance to protect against their energy attacks. You knew they were coming back? Threshmer asked in horror. We suspected. Human scientists found patterns in the historical data. Evidence suggesting the Void Seekers would return within the next few decades. Why didn't you tell us? Yava demanded. Wubin's expression became sad. We tried, Counselor. For 27 years, we tried to prepare the galaxy without causing panic. We built defenses. We strengthened cooperation. We developed technologies and strategies. He paused and looked around the chamber. But you didn't want our leadership. You didn't trust our judgment. When the Council voted to reduce our role, we realized the truth. The galaxy wasn't ready to hear about the Void Seekers. So we made a different choice. What choice? Threshmer asked, though he was afraid of the answer. We took our people and found allies beyond the galactic rim, Wubin explained. Species that had fled the Void Seekers in previous cycles. Together, we've been preparing for the battle that's coming. Battle? Grixonar clicked nervously. Admiral Wubin's expression became grim. The Void Seekers are returning. Our long-range sensors detected them 2 days ago. They'll reach the galaxy's edge. Within weeks. Terror filled the council chamber. Several counselors started talking at once, asking questions and making demands. Silence! Threshmer roared, using all 4 of his arms to gesture for quiet. Admiral, what do you want from us? Wubin was quiet for a long moment. Nothing, he said finally. The Galactic Council, as it exists, cannot be saved. It's too broken, too divided, too weak to stand against what's coming. Then why are you here? Yava asked. To offer individual species a choice, Wubin replied. Join the Terran Alliance. Accept human leadership and cooperation with our new allies. Help us fight the Void Seekers. And if we refuse? Threshmer asked quietly. Then you face them alone? Wubin said simply. The choice is yours. The hologram flickered and began to fade. You have 48 hours to decide, Admiral Wubin announced. After that, we begin final preparations for the war. The hologram disappeared, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Threshmer looked around at his fellow counselors. The proud civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was about to face its final test, and they would face it without the one species that could have saved them all. The emergency session had been going for 36 hours. Counselor Yava rubbed her tired eyes as she listened to the arguments echoing through the great hall of Nexus Prime. We cannot bow to human demands, Threshmer declared, though his voice lacked its old strength. The Galactic Council has ruled for millennia. We will not become servants to a species we rejected. Then we die with our pride intact, Yava replied coldly. Is that what you want, Threshmer? To let our people die rather than admit we were wrong? Around the chamber, the few remaining counselors argued among themselves. Some species had already made their choice. Their ships were gathering near the human fleet that waited at the galaxy's edge. Others refused to abandon the council system that had defined their existence for so long. The Altair Collective accepts the human offer, Yava announced, standing from her seat. My people will join the Terran Alliance. Traitor, Threshmer. Spat. Survivor, Yava corrected. Something you've apparently forgotten how to be. Before Threshmer could respond, every warning alarm on Nexus Prime began screaming at once. The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in flashing red. Counselors, came the panicked voice of the station commander over the intercom. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from outside the galaxy. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. The chamber fell silent. True. The great windows, they could see ships launching from the station in panic. Some headed toward human space, carrying species that had decided to join the Terran Alliance. Others fled toward the galactic core, hoping to hide in the deep systems. Admiral Wubin's hologram appeared without warning in the center of the chamber. "Members of the Council," he said calmly, "the Void Seekers have arrived ahead of schedule. Any species that wishes to join our alliance must depart immediately." "How many ships are coming?" Thresher asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Our scouts report over 10,000 vessels," Wubin replied. "Each one larger than your biggest warships. They're moving through empty space toward populated systems." The holographic display activated, showing the approaching fleet. The Void Seeker ships were enormous, dark constructs that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved in perfect formation, like a plague of metal locusts descending on the galaxy. "What do they want?" asked Grixanar of the Hive Collective. "Everything," Wubin said grimly. "They consume entire civilizations, destroy all traces of intelligent life, turn living worlds into dead rocks. Can you stop them?" Yava asked. "We can try," Wubin replied. "The Terran Alliance has ships and weapons you've never seen. We've allied with species that survived previous Void Seeker attacks. Together, we might have a chance." "Might?" Thresher demanded. "Nothing is certain in war," Wubin said simply. "But we have something the Void Seekers don't expect: unity. Species working together instead of fighting each other." 3 hours later, the first Void Seeker ships entered the galaxy's outer systems. Yaga watched from the bridge of her evacuation ship as distant suns went dark. Entire star systems simply stopped existing as the dark fleet passed through them. "How is this possible?" her ship's captain asked in horror. "They've had thousands of years to perfect their methods," came a new voice. Yava turned to see a human officer beaming aboard her ship. It was Captain Doyon Park, wearing the advanced uniform of the Terran Alliance. "Captain Park," Yava said with relief, "I remember you from the old council sessions." "I remember you too, Counselor," Doyon replied with a sad smile. "You were one of the few who tried to stop this disaster." Through the viewscreen, they watched as the human fleet moved to intercept the Void Seekers. The Terran Alliance ships were like nothing Yava had ever seen. They were sleek and powerful, clearly built with technology far beyond what humans had possessed 6 months ago. "You've changed," Yava observed. "We've grown," Doyon corrected. "Beyond the galaxy's rim we found the Guardians species that fled the Void Seekers long ago. They taught us things the Council never could have imagined." The first battle began at the edge of the spiral arm. Yava watched in amazement as human ships fought alongside vessels of completely unknown design. The alien Guardian ships moved like living things, flowing around Void Seeker attacks and striking back with weapons that bent space itself. "We're winning," Yava said in amazement. "This battle, yes," Doyon replied. "But there are many more Void Seeker fleets coming. This is just the beginning." Back on Nexus Prime, Thresher stood alone in the abandoned council chamber. Most of the station's population had evacuated. Only a skeleton crew remained to maintain life support. His personal aide, Kethva, found him there as the station shook from distant explosions. "Sir," the young Valkyrie said quietly, "the last evacuation. Ship is leaving. They're offering us passage to human space." "No," Thresher said firmly. "I am the last counselor of the Galactic Council. I will not abandon my post." "Sir, the Guardian Gate protecting this system has failed completely. When the Void Seekers arrive—" "I know," Thresher interrupted. "Go, Kethva, take the evacuation ship. Live to see whatever comes next. What about you, sir?" Thresher looked around the empty chamber where he had once commanded the respect of dozens of species. "I'll stay here and send a final message," he said quietly. "Someone should record the end of the old galaxy." Hours later, as Void Seeker ships appeared at the edge of the Nexus system, Thresher activated the Council's emergency broadcast system. His message went out to every functioning communication relay in the galaxy. "This is Counselor Thresher, speaking for the last time as a representative of the Galactic Council." he began, his voice steady despite the approaching doom. 6 months ago, this council made the greatest mistake in galactic history. We rejected the help of the one species that could have saved us all. We let pride and fear blind us to the truth. Through the chamber's windows he could see the dark shapes of void seeker ships growing larger. Humans offered us partnership. We chose hierarchy. They offered us wisdom. We chose arrogance. They offered us unity. We chose division. The station shook as the void seekers' weapons began tearing apart the outer defenses. To any who survive what comes next, Thresher continued, remember this lesson. True strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting them up. True wisdom comes not from age, but from the willingness to learn. True civilization comes not from ruling, but from serving. A new voice suddenly filled the chamber. It was Ambassador Jinho Kim, now much older but still recognizable. Counselor Thresher, Jinho's image appeared as a hologram. This is your final chance. A rescue ship can reach you in minutes. Thresher looked at the human ambassador he had once dismissed as too young and inexperienced. Ambassador Kim, he said with dignity, I thank you for the offer, but I made my choice 6 months ago. I must live with the consequences. As you wish, Jinho replied with respect. For what it's worth, Counselor, you were a worthy opponent. The galaxy will remember the Galactic Council, even if it couldn't save it. Will you win? Thresher asked. Can you stop the Void Seekers? We'll try, Jinho said simply. We have something now that we didn't have before, unity between hundreds of species. Human and Guardian, Altair and Kristen, even some Valkyrie. Who chose to join us? Some of my people chose your alliance. Your nephew, Kethva, among others, Jinho confirmed. He'll help build something better than what we had before. Thresher smiled sadly. Good, that gives me hope. The transmission ended as Void Seeker ships surrounded Nexus Prime. Thresher walked to the great window and watched as the ancient station, symbol of galactic civilization for thousands of years, began to come apart under alien weapons. We had our chance, he whispered to himself. We chose poorly. The station exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from 3 star systems away, but across the galaxy, the war continued. The Terran Alliance fought with desperate courage and new technologies. Species that had once been enemies worked together against the common threat. Human strategies, Guardian weapons, and the combined knowledge of dozens of civilizations slowly began to turn the tide. The war lasted 3 years. When it finally ended, half the galaxy lay in ruins. But the Void Seekers were gone, driven back into the empty space between galaxies. In the aftermath, Ambassador Jinho Kim, now called the first speaker of the Terran Alliance, stood before a gathering of survivors on New Terra, humanity's new capital world. We cannot bring back what was lost, he announced to the assembled representatives. The old Galactic Council is gone forever. Billions died in the war. Entire civilizations were wiped out. He paused and looked out at the faces before him. Human and alien, old species and young ones, former enemies united by shared sacrifice. But from the ashes, we can build something better. Not a council that rules from above, but an alliance that serves from within. Not a hierarchy based on age and pride, but a partnership based on merit and cooperation. The new galaxy would be smaller than the old one, weaker in some ways. But it would also be wiser, and this time, when the next great threat appeared in the distant future, they would face it together. The age of human servitude was over. The age of human leadership had begun, and the galaxy would never make the same mistake again.